to go?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'll call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order for Town of Oliver on May 10th, 2021. I'll ask the CAO if there's any late item.
Thank you, Chairman Schwarzenberger. We do not have any late items for our agenda tonight.
Thank you. So can I have a motion to accept the proposed agenda as circulated?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Johansson.
Second.
Thank you. So I'll call a question. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Hearing none, the agenda is carried as circulated. And on to the adoption of prior minutes, the adoption of the minutes of the April 26th Committee of the Whole meeting. And I have a mover.
I'll move that.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call the vote. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. On to presentations. We have a presentation of the Canadian Award for Financial Reporting, and I'll pass this over to Mayor Johansson.
Thank you, Chairperson Schwarzenberger. Yeah, I'd be happy to present the Government Finance Officers Association Canadian Award for Financial Reporting for the 2019 Annual Financial Report to our Finance Department, Doug Leahy, our CFO, Marcus Lebler, our Deputy CFO, Connie McLaughlin, our Payroll Clerk, and Holly Walton, our Accounts Payable and Accounts Receivable Clerk. The Canadian Award for Financial Reporting Program was established to encourage municipal governments throughout Canada to publish high-quality financial reports and to provide peer recognition and technical guidance for officials preparing these reports. Its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. 2012 was the first year the Town of Oliver received the GFOA Award for Financial Reporting. So big congratulations to our Finance Department for a job well done. Definitely doing a great job supporting the Town of Oliver, and we're very proud of you for achieving this award. Thank you. Thank you again.
Yes, and thank you. Well done, Doug, Marcus, Connie, and Holly.
You're welcome. Mr. Chairman, I do want to also give a huge amount of kudos to our Corporate Services Department, because without Diane and Matt Saunders, he's no longer an employee of the town, he's down in Osoyoos, but Diane and Matt were the ones who actually put the document together. We do the financial side of it, but they make it look very presentable, very, that's why we win the award, is they add a lot of statistical information from other departments. So it's a bigger document than the financial side. And I also want to add, the reason why it came in so late this year was for 2019, it's not yet for 2020, is because of COVID, of course, and that delayed the reporting of many of the municipalities in the province in 2019. So I just want to pass that along to Corporate Services. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leahy. Alrighty, on to business F1, the building bylaw 1404. The Director of Development Services report is attached, and I'll pass it over to Mr. Houle.
Thank you, Chairman Schwarzenberger. The purpose of this report is to discuss proposed building bylaw 1404 with the Committee of the Whole, which will repeal the existing building regulation bylaw. At the April 26th Committee of the Whole meeting, the following resolution was passed, and that was that the Committee of the Whole refer building bylaw 1404 back to staff for further review. Staff conducted that further review with Councillor Mattis providing some more input into the bylaw, and it's now back before Council for their consideration prior to it going to a regular open council meeting on May 24th for first, second, and third reading. So I won't go through the building bylaw because that will take a long time, but I did provide the bylaw in the report with the track changes in red, which are the recommended changes at this time. So I'll leave that up to council for further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Houle. Councillor Mattis. You're muted, Councillor Mattis.
Thank you, Chair. I know we have the better part of an hour, and there are still some items in this that concern me that I believe should be changed, that I believe that council should be looking at and determining whether they wish to direct staff for changes or not. I think there's still some concerns here, but I wasn't able to get, how the discussion went was I pointed out my concerns, staff changed what they thought they should, and that was the end of the discussion. There was not a whole lot of just the nature of the back and forth. But my concerns, I'll start with section 3.6, 3.7. I have spoken to builders, and I'm told that this is a concern in other towns as well that have used this same bylaw, where if you open up a wall in a house, that it could end up that you have to bring the whole house up to code. It can be onerous on the people that own the home and take out a building permit for a small renovation. If you opened it up and the plumbing wasn't exactly right, you could end up having to replace all the plumbing in the house. I had some concerns with this. I took it up with some builders. They do have concerns. They said it's been a problem in other towns. I guess I'm looking for council's thoughts on this as well, whether staff should be redirected to look into this particular one. There are others that I would like to have discussed as well with council. I look at it as our role as council is certainly to look after the corporation, but we also have an obligation to sit on the other side of the desk and consider it from the perspective of the people that are being ruled by the laws that we're putting, or the bylaws that we're putting in place, and to consider whether they're reasonable. I'm not sure that this particular clause is. So I'll start there and ask for others, other input once other people have had a chance to read through it.
Councillor Ventimiglia.
Thank you, Chair. I would certainly support that one being looked into further. I thought it was a good idea when it was brought up last meeting. I think without knowing obviously how other building bylaws are written in other communities and if they're all identical or if this is unique to us, but I think in my opinion, what it puts us in a position of having is people who either don't do renovations that they should do or would otherwise do to increase efficiencies in certain areas of their home for fear that opening one wall opens a can of worms, or people who do those renovations without applying for permits, which is what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to, in my opinion, make it as easy and accessible for people to do the right thing so that we have the right documentation. And so, yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Mattis on this one and would like to see that revisited.
Thank you, Councillor Ventimiglia. Councillor Grice.
Thank you, Chair Schwarzenberger. So yeah, reading through it myself, I'm wondering, because it does seem to me that there is a caveat built into there saying that the entire building must be made to comply, but only to the extent necessary to address any new infractions introduced as a result of the alteration. So I'm wondering, maybe Director Houle, if you can sort of enlighten me a little bit as to, I guess, maybe if you can give me an example of what that might look like. If I've torn open a wall to do an expansion and found something that wasn't to code, what does that mean for the rest of my home?
Go ahead, Director Houle.
Thank you, Councillor Grice. Yeah, I mean, I looked at it the same way you did, where it says that the alteration must comply. I mean, ultimately, this is the recommendation from MIABC, which is recommended for every single building bylaw throughout the province. So that's why we did not get into changing this section. Ultimately, staff's position is to protect the town, and that's what we're going for here. So I read it the same way as you, which is talking about only to the extent necessary to address any new infractions introduced in the remainder of the building as a result of the alteration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mattis, do you have something to add, or is that your hand from previous?
It's from before, but just clarification here. Yes, we are obligated to protect the town, but in this case, the town is not being protected from anything. It's putting an onus on the homeowner. And what it is if you were to, for example, get a permit to put a patio door into a wall, when you open that wall, you're obligated to bring that wall up to the building code. So if it's an older home, such as Councillor Grice's, for example, that would mean you would have to tear open that whole wall, upgrade it to 2x6 construction, and re-insulate it, and vapor barrier, and meet all of the other things. And if you happen to punch a hole in the wall next to that, then you would then be obligated to upgrade that wall. So it really opens up a can of worms, and it's a concern for me. I just think that there's a better solution. I recognize that the MIABC and the lawyers, but they're not the people that are building the houses, and we also have to look out for them.
Thank you, Councillor Mattis. Director Hull, did you have any comment on that?
No, I mean, I would just state that's pretty excessive if someone were to put in a patio door to make them rip up the whole wall. I mean, that seems like that's the ultimate extreme. I don't think that's an approach that we would take, but
that's how it reads.
Well, it says if an alteration is made, the alteration must comply. So the whole wall would be the alteration? No, just where the door goes, right? So
when you open up the wall, you have to fix the wall
by patching it with drywall, not like, anyways, that I would just say that that's an extreme interpretation, but that's all. I'll just leave it there. Thanks.
Councillor Ventimiglia.
So given the conversation that's going on and Councillor Grice's question to the director and the answer, I mean, that seems reasonable, but when you read, and so if we're talking about the way that it's written, I don't read it that way. Obviously, Councillor Mattis doesn't read it that way. And it leaving things open to interpretation, well, we all know that just, causes potential problems down the road. So I wonder then if that is the intent, what's just been described by the director, if there's a way to make the wording just more clear. Because I don't read it that way.
I guess that's why I've asked for it to be on the list, because we'd like to have more clarity on that particular point.
Director, do you have anything else to say on that?
No, I would suggest if we wanted to say something different, then to change it. Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense to make it clear.
I don't know when I can jump in with my next point or not, Chair.
Go
maybe
ahead.
The next one was 4.7 in the bylaw. It concerns me. Simply from the point of view that it authorizes anyone that works for the town. And I think we need more clarity there.
Authorizes anyone who works for the town to do what?
Person must not interfere or obstruct the entry of a building official or other authorized official. Authorized by whom? And who are the other authorized officials is the clarity that I'm looking for here. Who's authorizing them?
Okay, I'll go to the CAO, Ms. Cowan.
There we go. Thank you, Chair Schwarzenberger. Authorized official, it says of the town on property in the administration of this bylaw. So that would possibly be it would be the building inspector. It could be also our bylaw enforcement officer. And if there's an infraction of some sort that they have been asked to look at as well. So it's going to be those individuals that are authorized through either our enforcement bylaw or who looks after this bylaw as to who would be going on those properties.
And I don't have no issues with that, but can we make it clear in the bylaw that those are the officials that are authorized as per our other bylaws? It'd be the bylaw officer and the building inspector.
Councillor Ventimiglia.
Thank you. I was wondering myself earlier when I was reading through, I was looking for the glossary because I had a question about, in my own mind, about one of the other titles that's referred to further on, down on page 14. And so would a glossary be something that could be used in a document like this? Because if you look over in the comments that are provided on the page there, the comments in pink there, it says, other staff such as bylaw officer or director of development services to investigate if required. But if authorized official was just noted in the glossary and it spelled out exactly who those authorized persons were, that would be easy. I don't know if that's something that you would have in as a part of a bylaw.
There's all kinds of definitions later on. That's a good idea.
Okay. Councillor Mattis, you still have your hand up. Is it you have something else?
It's a fairly long list. As I say, I had concerns with the bylaw. The next one would be 7.1.
The whole thing?
No, it's actually 7.1A. And it's a small thing, but this bylaw requires a permit to repair a swimming pool. If you put in a new liner, or if you get a tear in your liner and have it repaired, you need a building permit.
Councillor Ventimiglia.
I'll just help Councillor Mattis out with his list. His question about this one last time also had to do with in-ground versus above-ground pool. And I guess I just expected to see this time that it would be specific to in-ground pool because I'm assuming that it excludes above-ground pools, but maybe that was sorted out in the background.
Actually, above-ground pools are included under fences, I believe, later on.
Director Houle.
The definition of pool has been updated to include above ground pool in the definition section.
Okay. Mayor Johansson.
I'll just ask the question, do you need a building permit to change the liner in a pool? Or is there a definition of what a repair, what constitutes the need for a building permit in a pool that's existing today? To the director.
Thank you. Usually you need permits for alterations of structures. So altering the liner of a pool, we would not consider an alteration to a structure, therefore it would not require a building permit.
But it doesn't preclude a permit for repair. And it's only the pools we're talking about. So it's a small fix.
I'm just going to raise my hand.
Ms. Cowan.
Thank you very much, Chair Schwarzenberger. With regards to that, so the Director of Development Services just indicated that if it was a lining that wouldn't be required, but if you have to fix a crack in it or you have to do some work to it, you're going to want to make sure that work is done properly. So I would feel that a building permit would be required. Because when you're starting to work on the structure itself to fix it, then that's a structure. And you want to make sure it's done to code.
Thank you. Councillor Mattis?
So I guess we need more clarification as to what we mean by repair of a pool in the bylaw. That's what I'm asking for.
Councillor Ventimiglia?
Yeah, I guess I'd just say that that comment is totally fair, because we can all go through this word by word and, point by point today and all be exactly 100% on the same page about what each thing means, according to the conversations we've had. But if somebody 6 months from now or 2 years from now picks up this document, never having read it before, the idea is that they should be able to understand it as well. And so it's a little bit nitpicky, but it is, in my opinion, worth the time to make sure that it's as clear as possible.
Thank you. I'll just weigh in here on my thoughts. I think, with all due respect to Councillor Mattis, I think that, the reason we're doing it, one of the reasons we're doing this is because the province is changing the rules and instituting mandatory step codes in the building process. And MIABC has gone through a whole bunch of hoops to try and develop a template that works with these upcoming changes. And I think staff's been very good and at getting ahead of the game and conducting seminars with our builders and getting them information on rebates and that type of thing. So in my opinion, I'm not sure we have to nitpick the whole thing to have every possible event or definition outlined. I think most of our bylaws, if you look at a bylaw, it's not unusual that we spend a whole bunch of time to a brand new bylaw and then change it a month later. So I'm, in my opinion, I don't think we have to nitpick this bylaw, but that's just my opinion. Councillor Mattis, so you still got to.
Absolutely. I intend to continue. I appreciate your comment. And I don't want to sound as though I'm nitpicking, but our role is to get it right. To go back to the meetings you referred to, and the initial direction to staff was to change the bylaw to include the step code, which they've done. No one is questioning that. The meetings that were held with contractors were in regard to the step code. Not all of the other changes in the bylaw were discussed with the builders. It was only the step code that was discussed with the builders. So in terms of nitpicking, yeah, okay, but I want to get it right, because this bylaw hasn't been changed in quite some time, and it's going to be with us for quite some time. Other people will come and go. There will be other interpretations, and one of our roles is to get it right at the start. So I appreciate Councillor Vendemilla's comment around, yeah, it's open to interpretation down the road, so we need to get it right at the start. The next one that I had was 7.4. Staff has made a change here, but I think that it needed one more little tweak to it. And I appreciate the change that staff made to make it clear. Other bylaws of the town and any issuance of a permit under this bylaw, the review of plans, supporting documents, or inspections made by a building officer, it should say shall not relieve the owner rather than shall relieve. And that was section 7.4 for the that was a simple one. The next one for me was 9.3, which is both, it's repetitive. It's covered in 9.1 and also covered in the building code. Certainly 9.3 E, F, and G should be retained. You know, basically at the start of this, it says that you must follow the building code. Well, and then the bylaw goes on to repeat many of the actual things in the building code. So it's purely repetitious. It repeats 9.1 for Ms. Vakovich, Mrs. Vakovich. My next concern was 10.4 L. And maybe the director can speak to this here, why we wouldn't require a foundation, an excavation plan for a garage or carport, when we require it for everything else from a certified professional. So, and this goes back to one of the points I made last time. By requiring a certified professional, it eliminates some of the suppliers of plans to our builders.
Director Hull, do you have an opinion on that?
No comment. This is what happens when you start changing sections, is that other sections you realize are not accurate as well. They don't reflect it. Thanks.
Thank you.
At 10.19, I know that the lawyers are saying it's a good idea, but it concerns me that if someone has more than one building permit or applies for more than one project, that we can refuse one on the basis of the other. I don't think that's fair treatment. If I was sitting on the other side of the desk, I would be quite upset.
I don't see 10.19
Maybe I've written down the wrong.
because it goes 10.1 A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
I know it's 10.19.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, not 10.19, 10.19.
Councillor Ventimiglia.
Yeah, I missed that one on my read through. Did that come from that suggestion come from the lawyers? Or from the review? To the director, probably?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree with having that in there. I think that's worth a little bit more conversation.
you think we should be able to hold one building permit ransom over another one?
Well, I mean, yeah, I do think that there should be some way to, if you've got prolific offenders in the building world, and they continue to get issued permits, and specifically if they're building for others, not for themselves, then yeah, I think that that's kind of maybe a way that we have of preventing future potential harm. We don't really have any other way to do that. So if we know, if we know of a builder, let's say that's, you know, out there building just crap, for lack of a better word, we don't have any way to warn anybody about that or to let anybody know about that. We just have to go on issuing them building permits as they apply for them.
Well, what this is saying is that if I'm building one house and I get a red flag, I get a stop work order, I'm not allowed to work on it anymore. That if the building inspector chooses that he can, and I apply for another permit, he can deny the second permit until I fix the first one, until I eliminate the stop work order.
Yeah,
So our hammer is the stop work order on the first project.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I'd just be interested to hear what the others have to say as well.
And I have a bunch of hands up, so I'll start with Councillor Grice.
Thank you, Chair Schwarzenberger. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that as well. I think, and especially because it says the building official may refuse to issue a permit, then we can trust the expertise and judgment of our building official that, you know, they're not going to be doing this arbitrarily. They'll be doing it, you know, based on, you know, a scenario like Councillor Ventimiglia suggested. If we've got a prolific offender that needs to be stopped until they fix their errors. So I would support that staying in the bylaw. Thank you.
And Mayor Johansson. Mayor, you're muted.
No, I just hadn't said anything, and I'm clicking my hand down. I'm unmuting here. I'm good to go. Yeah, I don't see a need for this in the document, and that just thinking of the other permit worlds where you've got gas permits and electrical permits and stuff like that. I've never seen that anywhere where they can withhold you the ability to get a different permit. The power has always come to deal with the permit that you have that you're not following through on properly, whether it's to like have a stop work order or a fine associated with it, or you won't get approval to turn the lights on or turn the gas on or those type of things. So I think we should, to make it clear, we should be dealing with the permit that there's an infraction on and not dealing with holding a permit back. Even in those other worlds, there's a way of dealing with contractors who are not following the rules, who have several infractions over and over. And I think this just adds a little complexity and a little gray that I don't think is really necessary. That would be my comment.
Thank you. Ms. Cowan.
Thank you, Chair Schwarzenberger. I would just like to point out that we didn't have this and we could have used it with Oliver Landing. They continued to do the same design, even though we had indicated that there was deficiencies in the first building, but they had already had their other permits provided to them. So they continued on with that. And so that's where you're looking at having that sort of ability to say, no, you have done these. When you're looking at that kind of a development where there could be 8 sets of townhomes that are all built and they each have different building permits, that's where you have your issues when they continue to not follow the building code.
Thank you, Ms. Cowan. Go ahead, Councillor Mattis.
Just clarification on that. So what the CAO suggesting is the stop work order was ineffective?
Not for the other buildings.
So
we had stop work order on the one building, but the other ones had been started too.
So why would we not be able to continue with the second building if they were meeting the building code there? It's kind of like what Mayor Johansson was saying, that if you're not following on one building, we have stop work orders and we don't give occupancy permits and we have all kinds of hammers to prevent the completion of that building. But if I have another building on the other side of town, for example, why would I not be allowed to proceed with that one? And I'm not sure how.
Through the chair, if council wants us to remove it, we will remove it. It's ultimately the bylaw of council. So I'm just providing you with my advice with regards to why it's in there.
Thank you, Ms. Cowan. Councilor Mattis, go ahead.
Well, myself and the mayor understand why it shouldn't be there, and Councillor Grice and Councillor Ventimiglia feel that it should be. Where does the chair stand?
I'm going to say that I think it should stay in.
Then I guess it stays in.
Well, I think, in my opinion, this is going to have to go back to staff to redraft, and perhaps they will have some other issues, but let's go forward and get the items you're concerned about on here so we can have staff look at them all, and if they have any questions or whatever, or they have reasons why they don't think they want to go forward, then we can discuss those at our next meeting.
Okay. The next one would be 1028. And the concern there is that our building inspector has no legal authority to inspect the work of engineers. He could certainly fulfill the first half of 1028. Building official may attend the site from time to time during the course of construction to ascertain that the field reviews are taking place, period. But the part about monitoring the field reviews undertaken by the registered professionals, that doesn't really work. It also relates to 1053. That was my concern with that one. That I don't think that we should be monitoring or believing that we're allowed to monitor engineers, because we're not. And this was just the last, well, nearing the end here. 1052 was just a small housekeeping issue. The staff changed 1052F, but they forgot to change 1052C. So that was just a small change. And then I'm jumping to 15.3. I believe it was 15.3. And the question would be through the director, does this refer to renos and additions as well? Or is it strictly new buildings? And maybe we could clarify that it's new construction in the bylaw.
Director, did you have an opinion on that?
It is just new for new buildings, which is identified in the step code. in that regulation. So if we want to duplicate it in this bylaw, we can do that.
Okay, well, if it says that in the step code, then it doesn't need to be duplicated. We don't have the step code here, so I did not realize that. The last one was 16.1. Derived from the Building Code Division B, Appendix C, Table C2. When you look at that table, there is no listing for Oliver on that table. It lists Osoyoos and just about every other town in the province, but not Oliver. Should we be putting in there or saying something as listed for Osoyoos? Is that similar enough to Oliver? And that's, again, a question through the director.
Thank you, Councillor Mattis. I could have sworn I've seen Oliver in there before, so if it's not in there, then I can look at that.
Okay. And that was the end of what I had.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mattis. So what is council's wish? I doubt the proposed motion is applicable anymore, so I'm open for a new, before we go there, Director Houle, did you have something to add?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I know a lot of staff time has been spent on this, but I'd honestly like to ask council if they'd entertain forgoing this process and just sticking with the current bylaw and adding in the step code regulations. The reason being, council did not direct staff to do this bylaw, but I felt that it was important for the town, given the age of the bylaw, to use best practices and MIABC's recommendations. Where we're at here is not even close. We have, truthfully, we have one councillor with the opinions on the bylaw, but I'm totally confused as if all of council wants all of these changes. So in my opinion, we're not close, and it was going to be a lot more staff time getting to a point where I'm comfortable with. So it seems like a lot of the discussion tonight has been that council's pretty comfortable with the way the bylaw is written now, and maybe we just go forward with that. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you. Councillor
Ventimiglia.
Thank you, Chair. I had my hand up before that, so I'm not going to respond to that because I'm not really sure how to respond to that. But my question was to the director, just going to be about something that I asked last time. And it's just in the preamble about, and I don't know what I've done to my agenda here, but what I've highlighted is flashing at me. So it's going to take a minute to read it, but it's about the fee reduction for the hiring of a registered professional. So this includes a 5% reduction versus the 30% discount offered under the current bylaw. And I asked last time why that might be, and I kind of think it might be because we're not trying to incentivize people to hire a registered professional. Well, they kind of have to, but I thought I'd just double check and see if there was any other answer to that question.
Sorry, Councillor Ventimiglia, I don't fully understand. I would just elaborate.
Section 9.8.
Yeah, no, I see it there. I put in comments that I changed it down to 5% because, well, 5% was the recommended from MIABC, but I went through other municipalities' bylaws and they seem to also have the 5% number, but they don't seem to cap it. They don't put an actual maximum on it. So I revised it to go with that as well. So I'm not sure. I apologize. I don't fully understand your question.
Councillor Ventimiglia.
No.
Yeah, I was just gonna, ask what section did the CAO say that was in?
9.8.
Did you have any follow-up, Councillor Ventimiglia?
I'm not that quick. I'm trying to figure out if section 9.8 answers my question, and it's not. I mean, if it doesn't, then I'll ask again next time because it sounds like we're not done this tonight anyway. So thank you for that.
You betcha. Councillor Grice.
Thank you, Chair Schwarzenberger. So I just wanted to comment on what Director Houle said, and I feel pretty strongly the same way that Director Houle is our subject matter expert here, and that he's made these changes to add in the step code based on MIABC recommendations. And so for us to be going through here line by line, pulling it all apart, I mean, to me, doesn't make sense. I don't think that's really our role. I think that's really micromanaging what our staff and who is our expert on this matter is doing. So, I mean, I think it does need to go back because there were a couple little grammatical issues perhaps there that could be tidied up. But I mean, I certainly trust our staff and trust his expertise. And I think I'm happy with the bylaw, the way he presented it to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grice. Councillor Mattis.
Thank you, Chair. The way we get to best practices is by looking at these things and changing them. The best practices for MIABC does not fit every situation, and every council has an obligation to review their bylaws and make sure that it fits for our situation. There is no magic bullet here that we can just pull it from somewhere else and say it's perfect. None of this is perfect. I feel for the director and that he has put work into this, but that's what we do here is we try to get things right. The initial direction was to include the step code in the existing bylaw, not to rewrite the existing bylaw. He went above and beyond, and I appreciate that. But by doing that, he opened himself up to having this particular discussion. And it may seem like nitpicking, but when things are open to interpretation, it causes problems down the road. The players change, councils change, staff changes, building codes change, circumstances change, and we have to try and get it right as much as we can when we have the opportunity, which is right now.
Thank you, Councillor Mattis. Councillor Grice, did you still have your hand up? I take it not. Mayor Johansson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to respond to the director, I think you have put a lot of work into this, but I think we're also very close here. I don't see any of these changes for the most part really changing the intent of the document, just providing a little more clarification on a couple issues that I would respectfully call them minor in detail for the majority of them. And I think we're close, and I think I would like to move forward with the new bylaw. I think it does, looking at the old bylaw, it provides a lot more rigor and a lot more clarification. Definitely references the building code a lot more and provides a lot more detail on the requirements. So I think that's an improvement as well. I don't think these minor changes are going to affect any liability. They're just going to provide some clarification. And I think one more go at it, we could have another look at it through the committee of the whole with the changes here. I don't think anybody else has any more. So these are the changes that we're looking at. So I think we're close. And let's not waste the time that you put in already to get ourselves to a better document. Those would be my comments.
Thank you. So seeing no other hands up, what is council's wish? Would anybody like to propose?
I would move that building bylaw 1404 be referred back to staff for further review.
Thank you, Councillor Mattis. Do I have a seconder?
I would second
I'll
that.
second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any further comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Motion carries. Next, we have public question period, but I don't see any attendees. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Motion's carried, and we'll see you all at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.